Welcome to our final session of 4 power practices to uplift your life. So delighted that you're back with us again. I hope you've had a wonderful time with the forgiveness practice. How's that been for you, Josh?
It's always great. You know, for me, sometimes I like to say, forgive every time I remember. And so all you really need to forgive is a past. And so it's really helpful for me to make forgiveness a part of my daily practice. And then when something big happens, I feel more prepared, like I've worked out that forgiveness muscle to do that. How about for you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like I imagine like chopping down the weeds of my ignorance over and over again and finding a path into my forgiving heart. And just like you, then when something bigger happens, I can find my way there.
I just got this image of you of like being like Indiana Jones,
I know,
making your way through getting there. But it is that. Forgiveness isn't easy work, but it's very sacred work and can really help us live more fully in the moment.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that. And today we're going to move into taking a look at affirmative prayer here in our session. So I'm looking forward to that. And so tell us about affirmative prayer for you.
Well, let's just start with why we use that term
that
affirmative prayer.
Yeah,
because prayer has been a term that we've used for a long time for how to communicate with God.
Right.
But throughout history, it's been through so many different ways. It used to be that the way that you would pray is to make offerings of incense or different things to try to please the gods, to do things in your favor. But when we're talking about affirmative prayer, we're talking, in my mind, about a very evolved version of prayer.
I would agree. I think one of the things that I've loved the most about our teaching, and indeed it is a thought that is woven itself through many teachings throughout the ages. We know that, for example, the master teacher Jesus said, "As ye believe, it is done unto you," and that we are continuously thinking beings. And so in our practice, I really think that we are in constant prayer. We're in a state of constant prayer because most of us are constantly thinking, except when we meditate, right? We might have the thinking get a little quieter, but we are constantly thinking about this and thinking about that. And sometimes our thoughts have really profound feelings attached to them, either beautiful or challenging. And so we're constantly practicing that as ye sow, ye shall reap. As ye think, it is done unto you. And affirmative prayer, for me, is that it's defining prayer as a practice of the mind that I'm now being affirmative about, positive, that I am contributing to the weight of my thoughts in a positive way versus a negative way.
Yeah.
Consciously.
I love that. And in our faith, we believe that we co-create with God our life. So we don't believe just completely that everything in life is planned out for us, nor do we believe that it's totally up to us. We believe that in our work, and this is in our work of prayer where it becomes most important, we're seeking to connect with the greatest truth of who we are, and then articulating how we can see it showing up in our lives. And what happens for me is sometimes I articulate the way that I want it to be, and it shows up like that or even something better. So I know there's a power greater than I am working with that. But that affirming, it's not wishing, right?
No,
it's not
not
thinking about what I want to happen. It's connecting with a deeper source and knowing how that truth can show up in my life.
Right, exactly, yes. And I think that one of the images that has come to mind for me is that when we pray, I've heard this quoted before, when we pray, we don't change God, we change ourselves. And I've seen in my mind many times like the sun shining down, beating down on the ground, and I can take a magnifying glass and use it to direct the sunshine in a certain way, or use it to burn a spot of grass if I choose to be somewhat destructive. And I think the same is true of the energy of this universe that's pouring through us, that we're constantly using it, we're constantly in co-creative nature with it, we're constantly setting it in motion, and it's just a matter of doing it in a conscious way that I'm building something up rather than burning something down.
I love that. I know that thing was pointing at me for a minute too.
Really.
It started burning my leg. And I love what Ralph Waldo Emerson said. He said that, prayer is the contemplation of things from the highest point of view.
Yes.
And, whether someone's an incredibly spiritual person or not, to me, there's nothing to lose in sitting and thinking about an area of your life from the highest perspective
Absolutely.
that you can ponder. So I can think about things that I want for my relationship, things that I want for my calling, things that I want for the world. And part of our belief, because we experience it and how it shows up, that it's doing something. It's getting this creative motion going that's happening in our lives. And that affirming isn't about directing God to do things.
No.
It's about creating an opening within ourselves so that these things can manifest and happen in incredible ways.
And that word you said is very powerful, creative, because some of us are challenged with thinking that we can do this in a creative way. I know for me, a lot of times I felt I can't think about something because I don't know how to get it. I don't know how to make that happen. And the thing I love about this process is it doesn't require of me to know how anything that I am dreaming about, affirming, contemplating in my creative mind. I don't need to know how it's going to happen. Mostly what I'm doing is I am allowing myself to contemplate it consciously and to bring to bear the good feelings of its presence in my life before I ever see it in my life experience.
Ernest Holmes talks about that idea of you don't have to know how it works, but that it works. And that's part of entering and using prayer in the laboratory of our lives, is to see what the results are.
And aren't there so many things like that for us? I don't know exactly how electricity works, but it doesn't keep me from flipping on the switch. I don't exactly know how sunlight can... I've learned about photosynthesis, but I couldn't do it myself and make a plant grow. But I know that if I put a plant out in the sun, that it will blossom or flower will bloom. That, these things that we have faith in every day and we get obsessed about, I have to know how it's going to happen. I have to know how that's going to come to me. If we can set that aside and just focus on using this beautiful power and presence that's pouring through us, that's what affirmative prayer is.
And sometimes, and I get that sense because I could feel the presence when you were talking, that it's also about taking that presence not just in your prayer, but taking it with you in your day. That vibration, it's magnetic in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
So how about I share a few quotes on affirmative prayer? So this first one is from Ernest Holmes. If the gift of life is already made, then our part must be to accept, receive, believe in, and use it. Your first step is to come to a more complete realization of who and what you are. Your next step is to enter into a more definite understanding of your relationship with this power. Your final step is to use this power for yourself and others. And our next from Jean Houston. Just as you would not neglect the seeds that you planted with hope that they will bear vegetables and fruits and flowers, so you must attend to nourish the garden of your own becoming. And from John Shar, the future is created first in the mind and will, created next in activity. The future is not some place we are going to, but one we are creating. The paths are not to be found, but made, and the activity of making them changes both the making and the destination.
Beautiful quotes.
So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about the power and the effect that prayer has had in your life.
I think for me, prayer is the thing that is woven itself through every change and transformation and betterment of my experience. Certainly, I've had experiences that got improved, relationships that got improved, where I didn't necessarily consciously apply affirmative prayer, but the good that I experience in my life is mostly due to my willingness to prayerfully consider my relationships, my health, my financial life, the life that I share with other people, our church, our world, and be willing to constantly see the best. And what I loved about something you said earlier is what possible negative thing could happen from being willing to live that way. And so trying affirmative prayer on a regular basis, being in affirmative prayer for myself and others has been a huge gift for me, because it feeds and nourishes my already naturally optimistic little heart that wants to see the best about people and situations, but I have seen it bear so much fruit in my life, in some of the places that mean the most to me. My son, for example, has had challenges over his young life. Either he's been sick, or he's had challenges at school, or there were challenges in our relationships. And so many times I could do prayer for myself to be a mother that could step forward and support him in his time of struggles or needs, that I would be filled with wisdom and know how to act or what to do, or that I could draw resources to us that would support us in our journey together. And I feel like right now, almost a miracle of watching this young man thriving in his life is largely due to prayer, to being willing to prayerfully consider every step that I took as a parent, every step that I took in loving and supporting him, and allow prayer to support me when I didn't know what to do. Because as a parent, I don't know about you, but I often didn't know what to do. Still don't at times, but something deeper in me knows what to do.
Yeah,
and I can access it.
That's beautiful. I love things that are going so well for him. And something that happens with prayer in relationships, and it's been the big difference that prayer has made in my life, is it helps us always hold something better for folks, even when we struggle to see them. And my go-to practice before spiritual practices was cynicism. Yeah. I lived in this world, I don't understand it, and so I'm going to make fun of it. And I'm going to find something negative in every situation, and I'm going to laugh at it. And it was kind of this defense mechanism. And at some point in my life, and a lot was through finding religious science churches, but I met people who saw the possible in me,
right?
And that is a very practical aspect of prayer. Here are these people who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, and they would hold this space in many cases for decades for me to step into it. And that stepping into it was part of my own prayer work. But isn't that so precious to have those people in your life who don't just see you for who they want you to be, right, or for who you should be in the world, but always see you for perhaps who you in your heart want to be, and always hold that. And I've had so many people do that for me, you being one of those too, by the way. Thank you for that I want to be able to do that for other people. I want to be able to step into into any situation and say, what's the highest truth of this situation, and let's be prepared for it to happen. Not coming in and going, this situation sucks, or right, this can go wrong, this could go wrong. Not that it's not important to be concerned, but I always want to walk into a situation, a circumstance in my life with a consciousness of possibility and not cynicism. And a daily practice of affirmative prayer has helped me always get in alignment, whether it's with my wife, my son, church, whatever it may be, always with casting out my consciousness of saying, what's the highest possibility here? And not God, make it happen, but I'm going to be a presence for that to happen, right, with creative thinking, with creative willingness. And through that practice, I have experienced myself and others have great healings or have great demonstrations of prosperity. But ultimately, affirmative prayer is that way of living with spiritual responsibility, of living consciously with the divine, right, knowing that I believe I have a God that's big enough that can create miracles in, through, and around me and for others. I don't always know how, like we were saying, but I'm open to it. And for me, that's part of not just manifesting and creating things in your life, but helping life all around us, if that makes sense.
It does. And you also bring up a good point that I think bears pointing out here in this session, is that this conversation about affirmative prayer doesn't mean that we are in denial about conditions and that we're talking about just praying over situations and looking the other way. I think what you demonstrated in your conversation just now is that we take steps to allow ourselves to be guided, to deal with conditions that are in our life. And we pray too, that it's both and. It doesn't have to be either or.
This sucks and.
Yeah. I wish this was different.
I hate this and. Yes, right.
Yeah, and that we can do prayers while we're stepping forward and taking action and doing the things that we need to do. We can pay our bills and pray for abundance. We can take the medicine and pray for health and well-being. We can be in the relationship that's challenging and have to do conflict resolution and be praying about love and healing at the same time. And that all of it together is this beautiful recipe for wholeness.
And we're wrapping up our our class, but one of the main things that we want to convey is these power practices are much more powerful when they're done on a regular, consistent basis. So
absolutely.
prayer, affirmative prayer, can be a powerful once in a while ritual. Forgiveness can be a powerful once in a while ritual. But when done daily, it's kind of like planting a garden and making sure you're watering it every day as opposed to once every couple months.
Right.
And as that garden grows, it's amazing the seeds, not only that you're planting consciously now, but years or perhaps even decades ago can start growing in your life, and it's an amazing process.
It
and
is.
I know that it's part of your story and where you are today as a lead minister here at this church, and me too,
Yours
and
too.
the marriage that you have, and
Yes.
the beautiful life that we both get to lead. I know is just as much about practicing affirmative prayer and all these spiritual practices as anything else.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm going to share a few things that affirmative prayer is and is not.
Good.
So affirmative prayer is knowing the highest truths about your life. Affirmative prayer is not pretending something is that isn't. Affirmative prayer is expanding your receptivity. Affirmative prayer is not wishing or bargaining.
Beautiful. And as you can imagine, with all this conversation about affirmative prayer, our last practice for this final session is to engage in affirmative prayer together. And so our founder, Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, talked about prayer a lot, did prayers a lot, and in our teaching we have a number of containers that we utilize prayer, different steps and that sort of thing. And today I'm going to lead us in a three-part affirmative prayer. And that includes a moment where I'm going to say a few sentences about the nature of the universe and our belief about what God is, and then an awareness that presence that is everywhere is right where we are. And then I'm going to say some affirmative words, and I'm probably going to lead us in a way that I'll affirm and leave a blank space for you who are watching this to be able to fill in the blank of something that you would like to pray about. So every day as you enter in this practice, you might want to think before you do the prayer, what is something that I would like to affirm the truth of today? And as you come into that awareness of what that is, to think of it positively. So in other words, think of the condition that you're seeing in your life and imagine what is the changed condition that you would like to experience. And so, for example, if I was feeling like I had a cold or a flu that day and not feeling very good physically, I might say, today I affirm my health and well-being. Just something as simple as that. And so that would be the space that I might leave a little blank that you can fill in for yourself. So think about what you want to pray about, and when you're ready, let's do a prayer together. So again, we can close our eyes or we can focus on something outside of ourselves with our eyes open, whatever feels comfortable and safe. And we just go within and take a deep breath together. And in affirmative prayer, where we begin is contemplating the nature of the universe. And in our teaching, we believe that whatever it is that we call God is everywhere present, and that it goes by many names. God, the infinite intelligence, the source, the creative force, the one, the beloved. By whatever name we call it, we recognize that its qualities are holographic, meaning that it is everywhere present, in everything, in everyone, that God is all there is, that the source is expressing itself in everything, in every person, in every activity, everywhere. So we contemplate that for a moment and just feel the allness of that infinite presence. And as we feel that expanded awareness of this presence, this source, we recognize together that if it is indeed all there is, it must be right here, right now, where we are expressing ourselves, that it's right where I am. It's right where every being listening to this word is. That I am one, that I am an expression of this divine love. This is what I say and affirm to myself in this prayerful place. So let us each one allow ourselves to contemplate that this infinite presence is right where we are. It's the very breath we are breathing, the very life we are living. And like the sun that shines equally upon all things and all beings and flows through everything, we experience the light of the divine unconditionally. It is shining through us. And that we are constantly using our thoughts and our words to create our life. And so in this affirmative prayer, we do this now consciously. And so I invite us to bring to mind now that area that we would like to affirm today, affirmatively pray about today. I invite us to become consciously aware of the changed condition we choose to experience, and with our own word to speak, either silently or aloud, an affirmation about this area. We can use the words I am, I accept, I affirm, I claim as we begin this affirmation. Let's just take a moment to do that. And if we choose to repeat that affirmative statement again in our minds, we can, or if we want to find another way to say it, we can. And I accept this truth on behalf of each one of us is now expressing itself in our lives. What a joy, what a delight. And we end our affirmative prayers most of the time by taking a deep breath and letting them go and just saying, and so it is, or amen, or whatever works for you, over and out. And so it is.
Over and out.
Over and out.
Thanks for taking this course with us, everybody. Good luck in your next 7 days of affirmative prayer.
Thank you, everyone.